In the Clippers' recent victory over the Heat, Norman Powell was in great form, making 12 of 17 shots and 5 of 8 three-pointers. He efficiently scored 29 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist and 3 steals. The Clippers' official social media released a poster congratulating Norman Powell for moving up to 8th place on the franchise's all-time three-point leaderboard. Months ago, many believed the Clippers were destined to be a bottom-feeding team after Paul George's departure and Kawhi Leonard's injury. But Norman Powell seized the opportunity. The young man who once couldn't afford basketball shoes has now become James Harden's most reliable teammate. Surprises often come unexpectedly. With averages of 23.7 points per game in 23 games scoring over 20 points, Norman Powell has become the team's leading scorer, proving the Clippers aren't as weak as imagined. He saw Paul George's departure as an opportunity, and what fans once dismissed as a joke, Norman Powell turned into reality. Playing at an all-star level, he has become the team's top scorer. He and James Harden formed a dual-core partnership, leading the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard to an 18-12 record. At 31 years old and 10 years into his NBA career, he continues to improve and has a real chance of making his first All-Star appearance. Throughout his journey, whenever Norman Powell felt frustrated or wanted to give up, he would touch the tattoo on his left shoulder. It depicts hands holding a basketball in prayer, with the words "Work hard above and rest in peace, Raymond Edwards" written on the ball. Edwards was Norman Powell's uncle. When Norman Powell was still a baby, his parents divorced, and his mother raised 3 children alone. Growing up in Southern California, young Norman often heard his mother Shannon crying at home. As a single parent, Shannon supported her 3 children on her own. Their rented home often lacked lighting, and countless times they were evicted because they couldn't pay the rent. During such times, they would turn to Uncle Raymond for help, cramming 6 people into a single bedroom. Norman Powell was a thoughtful child. Every morning, his mother would give him lunch money, but he would secretly slip it back into her pocket and endure hunger throughout the school day. As the only boy in the family, it was Uncle Raymond who taught Norman Powell what it meant to be a man. Once, after an argument with his mother, Norman blurted out, "Mom, you owe me." Uncle Raymond immediately corrected him, saying, "Your mom owes you nothing. She gave you life." Norman Powell's love for basketball also came from his uncle. They watched games together and analyzed techniques. Uncle Raymond nicknamed him Stormin' Norman to encourage him to take bold shots. One morning, Shannon woke up at 5 a.m. to find a note on the table. "Mom, don't worry. I went to the park to play basketball." Worried by his unusual behavior, Shannon rushed to the court, fearing he had been kidnapped. She finally relaxed when she saw him practicing shots, mimicking moves from a video. The player in the video was Lakers star Kobe Bryant. Uncle Raymond had collected those videos for Norman Powell and often joined him on the court for training sessions. As Norman Powell's basketball skills improved, Uncle Raymond's health declined. Norman Powell watched as his once strong uncle grew thinner and weaker. Many times, Uncle Raymond had to pull over while driving Norman Powell home because of sudden physical discomfort. As his condition worsened, Uncle Raymond became too weak to lift his head. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor. During Norman Powell's senior year of high school, he visited his uncle in the hospital daily, helping him bathe, assisting him with walking exercises, and finding high-protein foods to nourish him. Norman Powell knew his uncle was gravely ill, so he paid close attention to every word his uncle said, knowing they could be his last. Even years later, Norman Powell struggles to keep his composure when recalling his uncle's final words to him. On his deathbed, Uncle Raymond entrusted Norman Powell with the responsibility of taking care of the family. Raymond Edwards passed away at 56, leaving Norman Powell devastated and hesitant to return to basketball. At his uncle's funeral, Norman Powell made a final decision: not only to continue playing basketball but to excel at it, dedicating every achievement to his uncle. He got his uncle's name and a basketball tattooed on his left shoulder, along with the words "hard work." From that moment on, no matter the difficulty or despair, he would gently touch his left shoulder, as if hearing his uncle say, "Stormin' Norman, you must keep going." This belief carried Norman Powell from Lincoln High School to UCLA and eventually to the NBA. After graduating from high school, Norman Powell caught the attention of UCLA. After playing there for 4 years, he was selected 46th overall in the second round of the 2015 NBA draft by the Milwaukee Bucks and then traded to the Toronto Raptors. As a rookie picked late in the second round, Norman Powell was initially sent to the G League by his team. This decision enraged him, as he firmly believed he didn't belong there. DeMar DeRozan told him, "Norman Powell, if you don't belong there, go prove it." He played just 8 games in the G League, averaging 25 points per game, and never returned. During his rookie season, despite averaging only 5.6 points and 2.3 rebounds per game, Norman Powell had flashes of brilliance, including a 30-point game and winning Rookie of the Month honors. He started the final 17 games of the regular season, averaging 12.7 points in 29 minutes per game. In the playoffs, Norman Powell continued to shine. During the first round against the Pacers, he came off the bench to spark a major comeback, helping the Raptors secure a narrow 3-point win in Game 5. In Game 7, when Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan struggled, Norman Powell stepped up off the bench, shooting 5 of 6 and leading the Raptors to a hard-fought victory. As a rookie, Norman Powell couldn't afford sneakers and had to rely on team-issued gear. He worked harder than anyone during practices, earning DeMar DeRozan's admiration. DeRozan often invited Powell to one-on-one matches and treated him to coffee during downtime. On one occasion, DeMar DeRozan took Norman Powell shopping, offering to pay for whatever he chose. He hesitated about a $1,500 pair of sneakers, but ended up choosing a $100 piece of clothing. DeRozan scolded him, "Can't you pick something more expensive?" Having grown up in poverty, Norman Powell understood the value of money and was mindful of others' hard-earned income. When DeMar DeRozan was traded to the Spurs, Norman Powell had developed into a key bench player for the Raptors. In the 2017 offseason, Norman Powell signed a 4-year, $42 million extension with the Raptors. The first thing he did was buy his mother a Range Rover SUV, fulfilling her lifelong dream. After joining the NBA, he also bought his mother a new house and car. At the time, Norman Powell's family didn't need his financial support. His mother had a stable income, his eldest sister Jonice held 3 master's degrees and ran a jewelry company, and his second sister Margaret worked at a preparatory school while managing a dance studio. His family was never a burden but a source of motivation. However, in the first 7 games of the 2017 to 2018 season, Norman Powell's shooting slumped, going 6 of 23 from three-point range and missing all his threes in 4 consecutive games. Facing criticism from fans accusing him of slacking off after securing a contract, Norman Powell felt crushed and called his eldest sister Jonice for comfort. At the time, the Raptors were in Denver. Jonice immediately flew there to support him, even though she only had a brief moment with her brother before the team left for Salt Lake City. In the 2019 playoffs, during the Eastern Conference Finals, the Raptors trailed the Bucks 0-2. Norman Powell came off the bench in Games 3 and 4, scoring 37 points combined, helping the Raptors even the series 2-2. Without Norman Powell's contributions, the Raptors might not have pulled off that comeback. That year, he won the franchise's first NBA championship. Although Kawhi Leonard received the most attention, Norman Powell proved his worth. By the 2020-2021 season, his last with the Raptors, Norman Powell elevated his scoring average to 19.6 points per game with a three-point percentage above 40%. In March 2021, after being traded to the Blazers, Norman Powell penned a heartfelt farewell letter to the Raptors, spanning thousands of words. He wrote, "When you think about this team, I hope you'll first talk about Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Fred VanVleet, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and many others. When you've named them all, I hope someone chimes in, oh, and there's Norman Powell too. He worked hard. He never gave up, even if he didn't achieve much." At the Blazers, Norman Powell mentored young teammates just as DeRozan had once mentored him. He gave young players $500 to buy fast food, encouraging them to keep the change as a tip. He motivated them to train diligently and face challenges head-on. Having experienced hardships himself, Norman Powell didn't want others to endure the same struggles. In Portland, Norman Powell no longer had to worry about affording expensive shoes. Norman Powell's NBA journey has been full of ups and downs. He won a championship with the Raptors but was traded, signed a $90 million contract with the Blazers, only to be moved again. A second-round pick at number 46, Norman Powell's relentless effort earned him a significant contract, a testament to his dedication. Unfortunately, Norman Powell's time in Portland was short-lived. Damian Lillard was sidelined early with an injury, CJ McCollum was traded to the Pelicans, and Norman Powell was sent to the Clippers. After signing with the Blazers, Norman Powell had just finished renovating his new home but hadn't moved in before receiving a call from his agent. His agent told him, "Pack your bags. I've booked you a flight to Los Angeles tomorrow." Norman Powell was traded to the Clippers, returning to his hometown. Reunited with former Raptors teammate Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell impressed in his first 3 games with the Clippers, averaging 21 points and shooting 42.9% from 3. However, during a game against the Mavericks, Norman Powell fractured his left foot, leading to an indefinite absence. Despite this setback, the Clippers showed patience with Norman Powell. During the offseason, Norman Powell dedicated himself to training, even participating in the Drew League to stay sharp. This season, Norman Powell has been playing better than ever. Initially the Clippers' sixth man, he stepped up as a starter after Paul George's departure and Kawhi Leonard's injury, delivering a breakout season with averages of 23.7 points per game, shooting 47.8% from the field and 43.7% from three-point range. His scoring has increased by 10 points compared to last season, making him a leading candidate for the Most Improved Player award and a potential first-time All-Star. Over the past 7 years, Norman Powell has continuously improved, transforming his once-weak three-point shot into a reliable weapon. Since 2018, his three-point percentage has consistently hovered around 40%, reaching 50% this season. When he joined the Clippers, Norman Powell was already a versatile scorer, quietly contributing off the bench. With Kawhi Leonard sidelined, and Paul George and Russell Westbrook departing, Norman Powell seized his opportunity and exploded onto the scene. In his first 11 games, Norman Powell hit 46 three-pointers, averaging 4.2 per game, ranking 4th in the league and surpassing Stephen Curry and Buddy Hield. His three-point shooting percentage of 52.7% ranks among the best in the league. He has completely filled the void left by Paul George's departure. Norman Powell's career is undergoing a major transformation, yet some things remain unchanged. Every Thanksgiving, Norman Powell holds charity events in his hometown of San Diego, distributing supermarket gift cards worth $400 to nearly 300 families. For 3 consecutive days, local supermarkets close for 2 hours to allow these families to shop privately. Norman Powell's love and generosity stem from the love he received from his family. The love of his family has driven Norman Powell to continuously improve over his decade-long NBA career, keeping a promise he made to his late uncle. Time moves forward, but promises remain. Norman Powell believes his uncle is watching from above.